Hi guys and welcome. This is Jen Gaeta Siciliano, artist, memoir writer, bipolar psychiatric survivor, and your host of Not As Crazy As You Think podcast, the place that offers an alternative perspective on mental illness, highlighting creativity, non-conventional healing, and breaking on through to the other side. If you are ready for a new narrative on the mental realm that celebrates crazy and cool without penalty, then Not As Crazy As You Think is for you. Hello, y'all. Thank you so much for joining my show today. I have a little something different that I'm doing. Basically, I'm wrapping up the season and saying thank you to everybody who's ever come on board and listened in. I so appreciate it. I luckily stumbled into a lot of awesome things this last month. And it's brought me so much abundance. And I just kind of want to share that as I wrap up my season, because it's caused me to have to take off 3 to 4 weeks from doing any podcasting whatsoever. But the transition was so special to me that I feel like it's just propelled me more into, I guess, the role that this podcasting experience is giving me to play in life as I move forward. I'm wrapping up also the end of my 50th year. The summer is approaching. I'll be turning 51. And I have to say to anybody who's in their 40s and worry about turning 50 at some point, my life began at 50. So I just feel very grateful that this has been such a productive and exciting year. So one night I went to Bedford Playhouse, which is a very cool, hip movie location, and they have bands and they have a little bar and a little snack area, and it's very cute. And they have these talks in response to special films. And this particular film I was naturally intrigued by, called Cured. So Cured is this documentary which introduces the LGBTQ activists who refused to accept psychiatry's mental illness label. And they changed history. And the big one that a lot of the psychiatric survivors point to is the 1973 removal of the homosexuality label as a disorder from the DSM during that time. And it was a big victory. And the movie is incredible because it actually shows footage and interviews a whole bunch of people who were involved with these meetings where, these people just came on board and broke into the meeting and stood up for their rights and just grabbed the microphone and started speaking no, I've heard you enough. Now you're going to listen to me. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what has happened? We've all been silenced by drugs, because that's when the drug movement with psychiatry really took off in the 80s right after that. So it could have went either way. It always ends up back into the hands of big pharma or any kind of institutional corporate interest level involvement. And that's what directed the next however many decades until now, where people have been silenced and put on these drugs and lives have been ruined. So incredible. I went to go see it, and they had a talk with the filmmaker, one of the filmmakers, after the talk. I'm just so thankful to him that he was interested in working on such a project, because many people who have suffered under the mistreatment because of labels, they don't have other people speaking for them. And he was very committed to this journey. His name is Patrick Salmon. So I ended up meeting Vanessa Smith afterwards, who actually ran the talk after the movie was shown. And there were a few other therapists on the panel, and they were all very interesting, dealing with, all kinds of, gender dysphoria issues. And they had a lot of enlightening stories to offer. So I ended up meeting Vanessa Smith afterwards and introduced myself and told her I was a podcaster. And she gave me the opportunity to speak at Let's Talk which is a series that is funded by Arts Westchester, which, it's great. It's like a special grant, and they want to talk about mental illness and things regarding mental illness and mental health, which is obviously my strongest message. So I was very lucky, and I got to speak with her. I have that video on my website, jengatasiciliano.com. So please go check it out. It's under the videos tab. I was very proud of it, and I was very happy. I ended up, after the conversation, making the decision to say yes to this wonderful opportunity to speak about my own personal lived experience. And I was so lucky because I reached out to see if other past guests of mine or people I've worked with in podcasting would like to join me in such a conversation. And Jessica Silverman agreed, and she was part of the conversation, and she was phenomenal. I was so happy I brought her on, and I feel like it was the scariest thing I really ever had to do because it was live. And as most people know who've worked with me on the podcast, my podcast is not live. I produce it. So, if anybody thinks I'm this perfect speaker, it's not the case. I plan and I have the conversation, and I often edit, at least myself, largely. But I, just make sure that it sounds nice. So I was so thankful to be in the hands of someone else who really, cared for directing that conversation as Vanessa did. And it was a very enjoyable experience. Please go check it out. And check out Jessica Silverman, who is the host of a live podcast with Jessica Silverman. So yeah, definitely check it out, and check out more of Bedford Playhouse's Let's Talk series that Vanessa Smith facilitates. I was thrilled to be a part of it. And only 2 days after that, I ended up having an art show, which I had created during the years 2020 and 2021. And I started it during the month of May of 2020. And here it is 2022. And I finally was able to get it into more people's hands. I did these paintings, and you'll hear the story because that's going to be the rest of this podcast. The reason why I had to take a little break is because I ended up getting a new job. As people know, I started the podcast so they could still be creative because I had to give up my personal face and body painting business. So I had dissolved the business, but of course I didn't stop doing my art. So I worked on these paintings, and I speak about these paintings in the next section. But I was just waitressing, and actually I love restaurant work. It's been thrilling, exciting, and it's so much fun to be able to say that you can serve and be so happy to do that. Like if you could do that and feel like a king, then like, what do you need status for? You know what I mean? Not to say it's not high status to be a waitress. I mean, it's honorable. But the thing is, if you have to pick up people's napkins and straws, like during COVID, it teaches you a lot. And I feel very proud of that for those lessons. I was a regular dedicated worker at a local burger joint of no less. The Burger Barn, shout out to the Burger Barn in Somers, New York. And was there for 2.5 years through COVID while I did my podcast. I'm still trying to get the book sold. And basically, I had taught for 15 years before I had my child. And I said, you know what? I loved the kids. So I got the opportunity to get a job with Marquee Studios, which is like this nonprofit organization for the arts in New York City. So it's such a joy because I got 5 different schools that I teach, and they're all throughout the Bronx and Queens. It's so much fun, to be able to let my words seep into their brains, ever so gently, about shape and line and color, and think of it like this, and maybe you can do it this way, and how about this, and what does this mean to you through color? It's so exciting and fun, and to see the light bulbs go off. And also, one of the things I'm always reminding these kids of is it doesn't have to be perfect. It's so true. And as I'm telling them, I'm reminding myself, I'm like, oh, art doesn't have to be perfect. because sometimes we get perfectionistic because we were the best artists in our art classes. And we're like, oh my gosh, we have to show that, in life, we have to always do our best as artists. But what I notice, and when I teach the kids, the ones who are loosening up with it and they don't judge themselves as much, they usually come away with a really powerful result. So I'm learning from them. So that's what's great, because my day is filled with smiles about doing art, not just, getting excited about me doing art on their face and they could walk away, but then it comes off by the end. They're creating like memories, with how they're creating their own art. What does that mean to them and how exciting that is? It's so much fun to watch. I'm having a ball. I have so many different kids I'm teaching. So I'm thrilled to be back. However, it's taken a lot of my time because I had to do a lot of unit plans and lesson plans, and just the timing of all these other activities like the Let's Talk series and this art show that I was also given the opportunity to do. It's just been kind of overwhelming. I just cannot carry it all. So I am going to allow the rest of the podcast to speak for itself. I am allowing you to listen to an audio that we took. It's not great quality, so if you feel like you can't get through 5 minutes of it, just listen to however long you want. It is also on YouTube in the full audio visual of it, where I actually talk about the paintings, and also you'll see the paintings. So that's something you could also go to my YouTube channel and check that out. But I wanted to just kind of let you see kind of what I've been working on. And as the summer is approaching, I'm just really excited to be taking my first teaching artist summer again after 13 years of face painting and waitressing, bringing out cold beers for everybody outside, on a big tray. I mean, it's nice to step back into what really I spent a lot of money on an education for. But I'm really a lot happier teaching art because I could still do what I need to do, which is to speak to the people about things that I care about and write and about those things and record it through symbols through my painting. So I hope you enjoy this next segment. As I said, I've taken a few weeks off. I'm going to take next week off as well. So next season 4 will be starting on Saturday, 10 p.m. on May 21st. So psyched. Thank you so much for listening. The first part of the next segment that you're going to be listening to starts with Wilfredo Morel, and he is the Vice President of Immigrant Health at Sun River Health Foundation. He's an amazing individual, incredible artist, and a very just inspiring person I'm so thrilled to have met. He gave me an opportunity to show my work at Sun River Health Clinic, Healthcare Center in Peekskill, New York, which is a beautiful space. It's an unbelievably huge room with brick walls where people come in and out and they sit, in their center and get what they need. And in terms of vaccinations, people coming in and out of there, I can't even believe my work is there. It's very thrilling. And some of it I felt was a little politically charged and, it might push people's buttons. But overall, what I did try to capture is the essence of what COVID meant to me. So the show is called COVID Nation, and Wilfredo begins speaking. He introduces a little bit about what the building represents and what that space is trying to do. Sun River Health. And then I speak about the paintings. And it gets cut off on the 7th painting out of the 8 painting series. So, but I just kind of wanted to give you a glimpse. And again, you're going to hear trucks going by in the background. There was no PA system. This is totally off of my camera. But I just wanted to share some of these symbols so that if you feel like checking it out on YouTube, you have a few spots you could listen to it in the car or whatever. So, and then check out the you could also, if you listen to this in the car and just words about what I say about it. There's still the story behind the paintings. So you can certainly check out also my website. Again, jengatasiciliano.com. JenGatasiciliano.com. Check out my website, see what's there. I have lots of, my art, my body painting, stuff about my book, videos. So yeah, check it out. And also sign up for the newsletter. Okay, when you go to my website, sign up for the newsletter so I can put you on my list. Okay, I'm going to start doing mailings during the summer. So check it out, and I'll see you for season 4 on May 21st, Saturday at 10 p.m.
County in New York or in the country, whatever, but the bottom line was that the government said, Westchester, there's no poor people there. And some years ago, they said, no, we do. But guess what? More important is that in order for us to seek health, we have to go to Valhalla. And transportation in those days, we're talking about the 1960s, folks, and the 1970s. Wow. So from here, from Peekskill, you will have to, the only way to seek healthcare, you needed to go to Valhalla, to grassland, as they mentioned. And they said, well, what about community health center? And when we talk about community health center, it is a word that very, very much can be confusing, because when we talk about health centers, then we're talking about poor people. Then we're talking about people who are, and that's the perception that we had given to that. Where indeed, it is a place where you can basically receive help.
Is it like a clinic?
Thank you. And be careful, because when we talk about clinics, depending on the country that you come from, clinics is something private in my island. Community health center, it is either hospital or clinics, and clinic is something that only people with money goes. Or people with it. And this
no,
we talk about
different. A clinic is like oh, yeah.
In my culture, yes. I'm not talking about
that's
here.
A community place like this.
Exactly. So here, as a community health center, was extremely important that bringing access to healthcare to the community was imperative. But the other piece about it was about how well you can bring wellness to people. And that part was through the music, through the arts, through the coming together. And I think it was maybe about 30 years ago, which is how long I've been here, maybe 32, where the city of Peekskill started to call on artists. It was a huge call to the artist in the city of Peekskill. And because Peekskill wasn't like what it is right now, folks. It was a challenge. There was a lot of activity happening here. But the art was basically the way to bring a stimulant to this community. It was a way to bring economic growth. And what did we do? We said, okay, if we're going to have that, we still have to remember in bringing everyone together. And that's basically, and one thing that brings that is the arts, folks. Whether it's the music, whether it's the dance, whether it's the color. And I think that arts is another form for individuals like ourselves to exercise basically the what we bring and that what we have. Jennifer is an artist that I met through a musician who came and said, hey, Wilfred, I want to connect you with someone. And what I heard is that this artist is not just a visual artist, but it's an artist who do body paint. And I was like, how does that work? She told me that she's not using canvas. No. She goes and she uses this color. and said, but it's a situation that the work that she's creating, she basically is transferring into something different. And that was when I said, I want to talk to this person. And that was last year, I believe. So when we met, she said, you know, Alfredo, the situation that I had was that COVID was something that affected us all. So talking about having the need basically to have a body where you can definitely tell the story. And social distancing, folks, was one of the biggest issues. So as artists, very much we always have to find a way as to how we're going to do it. So Jan came and she said, you know what? I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to bring something, but my theme is combination. And again, to this day, it is very, very hard for us to even face that because we even forgot 2020. I don't know how many of you know, it was like 1 year. People are saying 1 year went, and I don't know where it went because we were so busy and so unfortunately under the you know the spell of this thing that we call COVID. So I would like to bring the artist who is going to tell us the story, but not only the story about the techniques that she has been using, but also about the story in terms of how the subject came to life. Jen.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much for coming. I can't believe so many of you have come to see what I've done, and it means so much to me because, you know, as an artist, if we don't get them seen, they just sit in our houses. So it's nice to be able to bring it into the community because that's the whole point, right? We want to create the symbols and put them down on some kind of medium so that we can share our ideas. So thank you so much for coming. So I was always a painter, and you know, I studied it in school and everything, and I went on to teach. But when my son was born, I decided to create a face and body painting business. So I was like this local, you know, face painter, and at all the fairs, and I was known for that throughout Westchester and even in the city. So, but when COVID hit, it was like, oh my gosh, that's my livelihood. You know, I'm one of these people that's losing my business. What am I going to do? It's now illegal to touch people, so I definitely can't do that. The nature of what I did was so intimate, and really, like, you know, I was just in everybody's space. It was an impossibility. So when I felt the urge to create, I said, I have to go to 2D work again. I have to bring, you know, get some canvases out. Problem is I didn't have any canvases, and I had no money to buy any canvases. So I was like, okay, what do? I have to just, you know, let's get real, let's see what I have, and look at the material that I have around me. So what you see is basically many of my signage. It's signage from my face painting set. So this first one here, I really want to point this out because if you, and I showed Alfredo this when I was putting it up, if you turn it around, you'll see that the back of it is a chalkboard. And the chalkboard was used at my face painting tent where I would make all the kids put their names on it. And so everyone knew where they were in order without having to stand in line. So the parents just thought this was genius, right? But that's not for sale because it's so meaningful to me because it was my first piece. And I said, oh my gosh, like, I have to decide, am I going to apply paint to this? Because if I apply paint to this, then I can't use it anymore, and I'm definitely giving up my business. And I said, you know what? I think I'm going to go in that direction because this is too important. I need to record my feelings about what's going on. I'm from NeuroShow. So when it was coming in and everyone was saying, oh my gosh, it's from NeuroShow, it's coming in, I was like, oh my God, you know. At the time with COVID, my son was sick when it broke out in March. And he was very sick. He had all the coronavirus tests, but not COVID-19 tests. It wasn't allowed. The state wouldn't allow. Remember, we had these shortened tests. So we were approved by Albany to go get this test in NeuroShow. And when we went down, that's when it hit me. And I think it hit me earlier than many people during the COVID experience because I saw that, you know, the National Guard was in NeuroShow, my hometown. And I saw that there were hazmat suits, and there was caution yellow tape, and I was like, they know something that we don't know, you know? And it was on, I remember it was on March 17th. St. Patty's Day. So after this whole experience, I was like, oh my God, you know, like, and he ended up being fine, by the way. He didn't have coronavirus, so it was kind of like an asthma that kicked in. But what this was all about for me was really trying to say, hey, you know, let's move past this. Look who the warriors are on the front line. That's what this is called, the front line. These are the people that were bringing, you know, really the war to the streets with making sure that people were able to get in and out of these hospitals. I had such compassion for them. And again, the hot Z, the hot zone, is from Euroshow. So that's my whole thing with that. The second piece, if you see, I don't know if you can notice, there's grommets. And again, like these were pieces that were just hanging in my tent, and each one of them had a bunch of like 8x10 pictures of all the different face painting designs that I would do. And I was like, well, now it's going to be something else. And again, applying the body paint to these canvases, at first I was like, well, it's not going to be long term. I know that, you know, at some point this is going to disintegrate. And then when I realized that pieces started developing more and more, I said, you know what? I'm going to have to just cover it. You know, let me just put the plexiglass on and preserve it. So it is preserved with the plexiglass and the fixative, but it's certainly not, it's not acrylic, and it's permanent. And I kind of like that feeling too, that sense of like, oh, it's a little fragile, so it holds a fragile part of our history. So this is called Self-Portrait Census 2020 Italian American from New York. At the time, I was getting all these, you know, oh, you gotta do the census and everything, and I was thinking, I just, you know, don't really care about that. You know, I'm worried about like people surviving. So, but I started realizing the idea of the census is to make sure everybody's counted. So maybe I should count for something, you know, since so many of us weren't going to be counted this year because people were dying. So basically, that's just my self-portrait, really, and what it means to me. You know, the Italian flag, of course, New York. New York meant everything to me during my career as a face painter and body painter. I was always down there. I was known in the body painting community down there. So to know that I couldn't go down there because the streets were empty, so that the ambulances could get to and from the hospitals, it just blew my mind. So this particular symbolism, I don't know if everybody remembers, but I used to watch, you know, back in the day when everybody liked to, Governor Cuomo doing his, you know, delivery of all the people dying, and those things kept going higher and higher, those charts.
Yes.
And I was just like every day crying, you know, hysterically. So that's really just capturing that in that symbolism. This piece is vacay or PPE. We know what was going on with the PPE shortage and why that was, you know, occurring was because a lot of the money that should have been put towards that was being, you know, redistributed so that big business was still protected. So yes, it seemed like it was so much even more important to make sure that we preserve the airlines and the bailout and everything, rather than take care of the people who were on, again, the front lines, taking care of everybody else. So this was a big piece for me. Again, this material is all from my tent. Like this is like a two-piece thing that like pulls out. It's just, I basically needed to get the information out there. And I think what I wanted to communicate most was that, you know what, if you have anything, and I tell this to the kids I teach now, I'm teaching art in the city again, if you have any material, anything can be used to create art and to create a message and to translate symbols. So that's really the only thing that I could do was like somehow get it all out, and I was able to do that just with the stuff I have in my house. And again, the materials are, you know, I managed to preserve it with the plexiglass, but, you know, to me it's just a little snippet of history because it was about just using my own resources. I didn't know when I was going to be able to get off unemployment. You know, I was just happy that I had such a thing. This piece, Age of COVID, this was really a response. This is when I started responding through my art to people on social media, because there was a lot of talk about everything, and you know, I have a lot of the symbols here. If you see, like, everybody was trying to do Zoom at the time. We didn't know what that was. We have the Facebook fights, you know, who was on the side of the safe. I was on the side of the stay safe. Others wanted to go right back to work. I had I was going back and forth. I was working at the Burger Barn at the time. A friend of mine is from Burger Barn here, or not anymore, but we used to work together. And I remember coming to work thinking, oh my God, these people are driving me crazy. The only thing I could do is get home right away and finish that painting because I needed to get it out. So this was just my way to kind of like, you know, almost encapsulate what this was going on in terms of like a comic strip. It's the best thing I could do in terms of, because it seemed like it was just, you know, almost like a comedy, but it was a tragedy at the same time. And so I tried to record what I could with what was being stated at the time. There was, you know, at the time we were at CDC, we didn't want to hear what they had to say. People worried about haircuts. At the same time, we couldn't be in the Olympics, but America was in the lead with the death count.
Yeah, when I first saw this, first of all, the haircuts, I said, I'm not cutting my hair, I'm not going to shave my beard until I find a cure. So this is what? February, so by September I was like, I gotta get a haircut. People thought I looked at my beard, I looked like Jerry Garcia. So I said, yeah, I'm Jerry Garcia. So, and when I first saw this painting, I said, oh wow, it looks like Speeds. You know, the Speeds, you know, and then I said, oh no, it's a comic, okay.
Right. But it could be that too, right? Yeah, but it has the comic thing. Yeah. I used to work for Archie Comics. So they were all like kind of lying around my house, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, there's a way to communicate this, right? I mean, it has to be done. Now this is a little political. Really, it doesn't matter where you stand. You know, I'm friends with everybody in every arena in terms of politics. In fact, again, this was like kind of a response to some friends who I was going back and forth with on Facebook. By the way, I'm no longer on Facebook. I deleted my account after 2020. So it was a telling experience. I'm still on other social media platforms, but I just found it to be like, you know, it was very hard on my mental health, and I needed to let it go. But again, the only way I could record my feelings was to just try to capture the symbols of what I saw, and to not go into this that much. You go peruse on it on your own if you'd like, but you know. The dates are important to me because this was created, Trump had said this on November 7th. I recorded it on December 6th. It took me like a day, like a full, probably about 12 hours to do. The thing about the paintings, I tried to complete them between like 10 and 15 hours, like straight, because that's how we did the body painting, because you can't have a model standing there for more than 8 hours. So it was me trying to commit to using the paint in the way it was supposed to be used. So I tried to do that, and the funny thing is, in me doing that, only a month later, we had the insurrection. So I thought, you know, it was pretty telling that it was great to be able to record it real time and then have it stand for something. And that's where I come to this painting, because the power of a dream, you know, I'm going to talk about this one first. You know, I mean, I tried to record it in symbols as best as I could. I don't even know if I have to say much about it. We all know what happened. It was excruciatingly painful for me to see the Confederate flag in the rotunda of the Capitol. It's something I never thought I would ever see in this lifetime. And I saw it, and proudly so. And again, I had friends and comments on Facebook like as if it was nothing. And I said, you know what, it is something, and it's wrong, and it's real bad that we're in 2021 at the time, and this is part of the backdrop of our culture. It's just not, it wasn't acceptable to me. Because that's what it means, okay? The Confederate flag, that's what that means to me. The Ku Klux Klan, if I have to say it out loud. And there were so many people fighting for their rights at the time, representing all different areas of the community, and I was trying to communicate that. And if anything, what really spoke to me personally was Amanda Gorman. She was the person who was the poet who read her beautiful poem on that day of during the inauguration. And if only we were brave enough to see it, if only we were brave enough to be it. So to me, it's like she brought so much hope to that day, because I was saying to myself, you know what, like look at all this, and through it all you really need is that little feeling of hope. that things can get better, that our culture can overcome these obstacles. Action has to come behind these words, of course, by people who are leaders in our community. But at the same time, I feel like it was the only way we were going to get through is to have those beautiful, saving grace words from the
Thanks for listening to Not As Crazy As You Think, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And remember, mental health is attainable for anyone, especially those labeled with mental illness. Until next time, peace out.